Coming up on the Branding Deep Dive podcast.
You know, if you see, for example, grass-fed, you know that the animal's been out on pasture. That's a great thing. If you see grass-finished, that means that it was eating grains and then they put it on pasture for a little bit and then they put it in the slaughterhouse. And I forgot exactly what the time period is, but I think it's like a little over a month or 45 days or something like that. But the interesting thing is that just makes it more marketable. Grass-finished.
This is Ahmed and welcome to the Branding Deep Dive podcast. If you're new here, this is a podcast where we have in-depth discussions about what brands are doing well to drive customer loyalty and how you can take those principles and apply them to your own brand. Today we're talking to Ali, Ahmed, and Muhammad Tariq. Ali and Muhammad recently started a farm and meat processing services company called Pure Natural Halal. For years, they visited local farms to perform the Udhiya, which is the ritual Islamic animal sacrifice, and they found themselves dissatisfied and disheartened at the lack of quality services being provided. Because of that, they decided they were going to do something about it. Their mission is to bring the prophetic standard of excellence back into the Udhiya process and back into farming in general. Last year, they started off by sacrificing 40 Udhiya animals on Eid. This year, they're slated to do anywhere from 150 to 200 animals. In this episode, we dive deep into how they got started, what the Udhiya process actually is, how they're approaching running their business and marketing, and much, much more. If you've ever had to spend all day at a farm to wait to do your Udhiya, this episode is a must listen. Now, here are Ali and Muhammad. For the people that may not be Muslim, not familiar with the Udhiya process, can you give them a little bit of a...
Sure. So basically, this is, we believe in all the prophets, as Christians and Jews do, and so we believe in Abraham, or as we call him, Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, and we believe in the sacrifice that he made. He had to slaughter his son. We do have a discrepancy, some of us, between which son it was, but regardless, it was the devotion and the willingness to please God is really that whole process that we're commemorating where he sacrifices his son. So what we do every year is that we find an animal, and usually it'll be like either a sheep or a goat or a cow, or it could even be a camel, and we slaughter it, and we do that in commemoration of this sacrifice that Abraham had made. So for us, it should be a very spiritual thing, and I think because of like the modern day sort of like you go to the grocery store, that's where the meat comes from. It grows out of the grocery store. People don't really realize that there's a whole process in raising an animal and whatnot, right? And so the real sacrifice is actually being able to raise the animal and form a connection with it. That's the sacrifice. And some of the ulama of the past, they would literally take their animal with them every single day wherever they would go, to the extent that the day that they would slaughter it, they would actually cry, because they knew that this was a life that they had sacrificed, and that like this was for the sake of Allah, and it's sacred. Life is sacred. So that's that kind of sacrifice that's real, right? In this day and age, it's like you go to the farm. I want that one. That one looks, maybe it'll taste good, maybe it won't taste good. Who knows, And then you do your udhiya and you leave. But there's a whole spiritual side to it that I think we're missing, and so this is kind of like the real sacrifice, So, but yeah, for just like the Islamic standpoint where it came from, we're just commemorating that sacrifice that Abraham made, and now we're also doing that in commemoration of that.
Yeah, you mentioned, you guys have been doing this process in the community at these farms for years, and you had a lot of problems. Can we get into some of those problems that you guys are seeing? Or?
Yeah, let's kind of pull it back, actually. I want to tell you guys basically how me and Ali started together, right?
Yeah.
So like Ali said, Ali had learned this from his father too. Mashallah, he'd been doing it for a while, and I had been doing it the similar way too with my father, and I'd learned it from him. And they had set up a whole kind of like a small business, and it had been running for a couple of years. The problem that I saw was it was so hectic. The animals were, closed off in small spaces when they were organized. People did not know how to slaughter, and this is one thing me and Ali, kind of hammered down on that if you're able to take a life and you're doing the sacrifice, this Udhiya Qurbani, for Allah's sake at this point, you don't want to have the animal go through a lot of pain, and you want to do it the proper way, right? You want halal, tayyib meat to come out of that too. So I had been doing it for a while under my father. My father eventually stopped the operation. So for a couple of years, I did it by myself. But then one of the years, Ali reached out to me. He was like, hey, I usually go by myself and I do a lot for family members. They'll just tell me, I'll go do it myself. I know you do the same thing. Why don't we just go together? So subhanAllah, like we started out one of the years, me and him went. The next year we took about 10 to 15 Unity guys with us. And then after that, we just started taking people every year. And every year we'd sit there and we'd see other people on the side doing their operations, because there was one location we'd go to, right? And other people would come there too. And be like, man, they're doing it the wrong way. Man, that animal's suffering. Man, like, that's not right. What can we do? And man, not a lot of people know what this is. You tell a lot of people, Udhiya Qurbani, no, we just send money back home. No, you have an opportunity to do it here. You should practice the sunnah. So we started talking a little bit, and while we were talking, Ali, started taking notes and started forming a whole business plan. And it wasn't actually a year after we had these conversations. We sat down one day and he's like, dude, I have this whole business plan of how we can run it, how it will be more efficient, and how we'll get the best out of it, inshallah, and it'll be very rewarding. So the biggest thing was doing it a proper way. So now you have so many more people that have the opportunity to come and take part in Udhiya and Qurbani. So we ended up sitting down, going through the business plan, pages and pages, and subhanAllah, man, the story is crazy. Inshallah, we'll tease it in a trailer, but things just fell into our way, man. Alhamdulillah, the way we acquired the property, the way we acquired our contacts, the way we were able to just get the word out. It was like step by step, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just took care of us. It's crazy if we were to actually write down the things that happened for us in order for this operation to take place. So inshallah soon, I guess we'll talk about that, but that's just how we kind of started. Was we were doing it just for our family and friends, and we were like, what's a more efficient way to get everyone to come and participate in the sunnah, and at the same time, have it be set up so efficiently that, first of all, on Eid, you're not spending your whole day at a farm. You should be spending with your family and friends. They're coming from out of town. And second of all, you're doing it the proper way, so you feel good when you do it the right way, right? If you are gonna go ahead and slaughter the animal and saw at it, that's not gonna be a good feeling even afterwards. You're gonna know. So alhamdulillah, we have processes put into place that one swift cut, time efficient. You spend about 45 minutes at the location, and keep us in your du'as. Inshallah, it goes well. But that's the overview.
One thing I want to just touch on here, and I think for the audience that's listening, one important lesson is that this process is actually like kind of a headache. Not kind of, it's like really a headache. And so when you can really solve a real problem for people, then you notice that people will come to you and find you, and they'll give you their business gladly. So really important point, and that's kind of, I think a lot of people, like myself included, when we're looking for business ideas and stuff like that, we're like, oh, what's like a cool thing to do, right? But really what you got to find is like, what's the problem that people are facing that they really want to fix, right? And this is one of those things. So one of the things that you guys brought up a couple times, and I'm really curious to hear, is that, are there any funny stories of people doing things wrong?
Oh man, I have cuts on my bodies from there's so many funny stories.
There's some pretty messed up stories, but I could tell you a couple just off the top of my head. There was one time we went to a farm, and there was a guy who they were trying to kill a cow, and this is one of the reasons why we don't slaughter cows just yet, is because we don't have a safe way of bringing it down without stunning or injuring the cows. But they were shooting this cow in the head, and they shot this cow almost 9 times in the head. Oh my goodness! They kept shooting it. It's not funny, but it was the part that was ironic was that you're supposed to be doing a qurbani. This is like a sacrifice to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and here you are torturing this animal. And not only are you doing it, not only are you shooting it 9 times, there are other cows coming up to it and kind of nudging it and sniffing it and kind of just trying to keep it calm while it's going through this really painful process of getting shot in the head, because they're doing it in a pen with 4 or 5 other cows in there.
They're shooting it while it's in the pen.
They're shooting it while it's in the pen.
Everything can see.
Yeah,
That's
and
around the area.
it was just like, you know, I was like, wow, this is terrible. Finally, when it got dropped, then they go over and they start cutting the neck, you know. That's one story. Another story, you know, somebody was slaughtering a goat. I was actually with Mufti Rabbani. So somebody was slaughtering a goat, and I was holding it down for them. And the guy cut it, and I was like, you need to cut more. And he was so adamant that he had done it right that he's like, just let it go, it's good. And so I was like, all right, fine. I let it go. It got up and it started running.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, you know, my luck, this thing was like, you know, over like 150 pounds, like huge goat. And so all I could do was just grab the back of it. I couldn't even like throw it on the ground to finish slaughtering it. So I'm holding it, and I'm trying to bring this animal down, and Mufti Rabbani comes out of nowhere. Even that guy was just standing like shocked, like what just happened? Mufti Rabbani comes out of nowhere, just knocks this thing down and slaughters it. Takes a knife. I'm like, I don't even know how he did it. Like one motion, he slaughters his goat, and he finishes it. And I was shocked. I was like, where did Mufti Rabbani come in this? Like, you know, where did that happen? You know. But yeah, like, you know, another time, you know, we saw like a Muslim guy asking a non-Muslim guy if he can slaughter his animal for him. You know, and we're like, what is this? You know, it's just it's funny because, like, you know, you're talking about business and stuff, and you know, these non-Muslims have kind of just figured out that this is like a really big market for them, which is cool. I mean, like, to be honest with you, there's no problem that they're like supporting us and helping us in this way. But the fact of the matter is that they don't really respect us, some of them. Actually, a lot of them don't really respect us, you know? And there's a real famous place that everybody goes to. It's called Brower's Farm. It's actually, it started off as a pig processing plant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so and they still do that. That's like their specialty is hog processing. And I don't think a lot of people know that. But they got this big sticker right there that says, new sheriff in town, and it's Trump. It's a picture of Trump, and he's like, why would you put that out of all the places you could have put it? You're gonna put it right there on your front, on the front of your building. Like, okay, forget your political views or whatever. Why at a slaughterhouse up north where there's like, you know, only like, you know, white people, would you put that there, right? Obviously, they're kind of trying to send a signal. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, or a message. So, but yeah, you know, seeing a bunch of funny things, man. Like people just doing all sorts of weird things, slaughtering animals in front of other animals. You know, like. And like, you know, I don't know, man. Part of it is like people get like a rush out of being like, oh yeah, like we went and we did this big manly tough thing, like we took down this animal, and like it's like, bro, that's not even how the Prophet ﷺ like wanted this to be, you know. Like there was a man who had his foot on the throat of an animal, and he was upset about that. Like, why are you torturing this animal? Don't do that, you know. So and you know, there's so many hadith, you know, make sure your knife is sharp, don't show it to the animal, you know, be kind, make sure you give it water, all these things. And here, like, people just like kind of just turn it into this like sort of like a macho thing where you just you know, I took out the biggest animal I could, you know, blah, blah. I mean, there is a tradition around it, you know, all the men in the household go and they do it, but it should be like an act of worship, not some like, you know, flex. You know what I mean?
And when it goes back to being an act of worship, you know, you should perfect that act of worship. So in reality, to be honest, me and Ali don't have an issue doing an animal alone by ourselves over the years, right? Yeah. That's the proper way to do it at that point, right? The animal's not stressed. There's not 4 guys holding on to it. So even with us, the way we've set it up, alhamdulillah, is you have 2 people. That's it. That's all you need. One person holds the animal, the other person holds the head and has a knife, and it should be one swift cut. Going back to like funny stories, you know, over the years, I think me and Ali have both been injured because people don't understand that you're taking a life. What they will do is they will start out and just start like teasing the animal.
They won't push hard enough,
right? And that's one thing we want to get rid of going into the future. We have a lot of things, inshallah, that'll come out soon that will, you know, make it even much easier and, you know, efficient for the animal and the person who's doing it. But for now, I think people need to realize you're taking a life, you know, don't have an ego in this, right? A lot of people, this is another thing, a lot of people when they come to us and buy animals with certain questions and want to deal, you know, as a merchant and all that, there's an ego. And I think that's one of the biggest things we want to get rid of in this market, right? Especially within our culture and our religion. We're not supposed to have an ego with these things, right? Trust your brother, you know, and learn what you need to perfect, your act of worship. And a good point, that everyone should take away from this, even me and Ali, over the years have taken away, is that this is the act of worship, right? This is not a business transaction that you're taking place for your business to profit or for you to get the best deal there is, monetary wise, right? And I think everyone ends up nickel and diming each other or trying to haggle and bargain at such a price that the act of worship is forgotten, and it's really in reality just the image of a big animal or a good animal that's going to get you good meat afterwards. So I think if people start changing the thinking process for Udhiya and Qurbani, it would be very good going forward, especially when dealing with farmers and different sources, because right now, to be 100% honest, the farmers, when they deal with the Muslims, it's a very bad image. And the reason being is they spend their whole lives, all of their day, raising this animal, feeding this animal, keeping in good conditions, and then you have a couple Muslims that drive by their farm, see that they have these livestock, go up, try to nickel and dime them, and then when it comes to slaughtering the animals too, they do it in such a horrendous way that it just turns them off to our religion. That's not our religion at the end of the day. We're supposed to be perfecting our worship, right? Not doing it in these types of transactions. So I think one thing that everyone should realize, especially with Qurbani Udhiya, forget the business transactions, At the end of the day, perfect your act of worship. So if you're going to learn to take a life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, learn. When you come there, drop your ego. We've been doing it for a while. Alhamdulillah, we have professionals on stand. We will teach you the proper way to do it. And inshallah, your Qurbani will count, right?
There's a lot of pain in your voice.
Right. Yeah, it's been over the years, man. Like, so many animals.
It's just from like a monetary standpoint, right away you're already getting a deal. Like even whatever price they're gonna tell you, because the price that you get per pound at the store, if you're gonna get a lamb or you're gonna get beef or whatever you're gonna get, it's gonna be way more expensive.
Right.
Like it's probably be 5 times more expensive because anytime you cut the meat or you do more processing to it, it's going to be more expensive. So right away, you going directly to the farmer, he's going to give you a good deal. Like you're already getting a really good deal on that animal. You're probably getting half of whatever it is that you're going to get. You're going to get a much better deal just dealing with the farmer directly. So that's the first thing. So you're already getting a deal. There's no worry there, right? And then the other thing is that they start hounding these guys like, oh, give me this. One of the farmers we're talking to, he's like, I was sitting at the auction, and he's like, I heard a group of farmers talking, and he's like, we don't really want to deal. They were discussing themselves. We don't really want to deal with the Muslims because every time they show up, they start saying, oh, can you bring the price down? And you also gotta understand like the culture. For us in our culture, it's normal to haggle, right? Yeah. But here it's not like that. There isn't. They don't really like. You can haggle maybe like here and there, but like, if you start doing like 50%, 25% of the price, like, come on, who's going to do that? They don't, that's not how they market themselves, right? They are already, when they give you a price, they're already considering a fair price in their head, what's fair, right? So you have to be understanding of that, right? Like, you can't just always be thinking, okay, I'm going to, cut these out. And like another thing you also have to understand is that farmers are a dying breed. The average age of a farmer is 60 years old.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so that tells you right away there's not a whole lot of new people coming in. It's not a really growing industry, and farmers are already like broke. So you're really just haggling with broke people. So it makes no sense. Why would you do that? You would if you know this person. And like we're talking about doctors and engineers coming in like haggling with these people, right? It's like, come on, man. This guy has been out in the field slaving to raise this animal. You're gonna start nickel and diming him? Like, come on, it doesn't make sense, right? So you have to be a little fair with these people. You can't just like maybe all right, $5-10 here and there, cool, that's no problem, right? They're probably they'll be like, yeah, it's not an issue, especially if you're buying more than one, right? Because it's saving them time, right? So you have to be fair with them. I was talking to another farmer, and he was telling me how he had this calf that was like, it was when it was born, it was kind of sickly. So he put a little money into it, and he got it up to a good price. But for him, he wanted to get rid of that animal ASAP. So he told this guy came to his farm, and he's like, I'll sell it to you for $200. So the guy's like, I don't know. Then he left. Then he came back a month later. I wanted a calf for $200. I already butchered that one because it wasn't doing so good, and weight wise, it doesn't make sense for me to keep it. It was healthy. It just usually if an animal starts off slow, it's kind of hard to raise it up, and you really don't want those genetics in your herd anyways. So he called it. So then the guy comes back and he just starts like hammering him. I want a $200 calf, like, give me this one for this much, like not realizing that, even that $200 calf, you got to understand that farmer put extra time and effort to get it into health, so it's proper and healthy and like marketable, that he can actually sell it or whatever. Right. So, people come there and they're just already like, I want a deal, Right. The thing is that the qurbani it's a sacrifice, right? Okay, you're not going to spend the time to raise the animal. At least, realize that, look, it's going to cost a little bit of money to sacrifice it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, these are some of the stories that we hear from the farmer side, and especially in terms of our reputation with them. Mm-hmm. They don't realize there's a good market to work with the Muslims if they work with them. But they were the discussion that they had was like, we much rather just sell our animals at the auction than to deal with the Muslims. Yeah. When they could probably make way more money just directly marketing to Muslims.
We can literally have an impression as Muslims to create more jobs for these guys and opportunities, and have such a better act of dealing with them. And in terms of like spirituality too, man, a lot of these farmers you deal with are Amish, and they're spiritual too. So it's just a bad turnoff when this ends up happening, So I think in the future, alhamdulillah, we'll start spreading the word in a positive manner, that these transactions that they do have with the Muslims are not only profitable for them too, but we're reliable, that we're gonna get them the volume in terms of the halal meat that we need, and they're gonna get us those great animals that they've been raising. And it's a team, it's a partnership at the end of the day, right? With these business models everywhere in the United States, with 100% certainty I can say right now, the farmers are nowhere near making what they should be making when they do supply to the Muslims. Yeah. In fact, they're making probably 50% of what they should be making. Close to it. That's how low it is. Yeah. And that's why they're turned off. And wallahi, that's no way to do business with anyone. Even the Prophet ﷺ said, be fair in your transactions, be fair in your business dealings. As Muslims, if we're not going to follow the sunnah, then what's the point of doing the sunnah? What's the point of doing udhiya qurbani if you're not going to follow it the proper way? Right. Dude, there's so much profit to be made for them, and at the same time have it for these businesses too that deal with them. That's what no one realizes.
This is kind of a separate discussion, but just farming in America in general could easily be supported by the Muslim community. 100%. Because right now, as it is, the way that the market is kind of pushing all these farmers, it's into feedlots, and it started I don't know if you've seen these big warehouses where they keep all these chickens. I've never seen daylight or whatever. No one wants to. If anybody ever saw how these animals are being raised, no one would ever want to touch them, because it's just disgusting. You're literally in like a 4x4 cage, and you just right where you're at, you're dumping, and it's just not a clean process. To the extent that they actually have to modify the chickens, they'll cut their beaks so they don't peck on each other. It's just a really horrific standard of practice. But that's the way the industry is pushing people, because they've commercialized it so much that they need to produce the quantity, right? And when you get the quantity, you lose the quality, right? But at the same time, there are ways to do farming that are from an ecological standpoint are healthy for the land and the soil, and properly, if you do pasture management programs and you have that all in place, you can actually be very profitable, because you're not spending all this money on feed. Part of the problem with some of these animals, when you get them, if you put them on grass, they could actually die, which is crazy, because it's a ruminant animal. For example, you put a cow on grass that's been in a feedlot its whole life, it could get bloat, which is a type of gas that gets in their stomach, and you have to monitor that. If sometimes what they'll do is they'll poke a hole in the side and they'll let that gas out, or they'll put tubes down their throats to get that gas out. But that's kind of that's a big problem. You're creating this animal that's never even been on grass before, and the minute that it's eating what it was intended to eat, it can't even eat it, right? That's crazy, right?
So that's why, like, you see, I know some places have like grass-fed beef and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So that's
Right.
what. Okay, so
Yeah.
there are a couple different things that I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
I think one of the things is like, I think a lot of people don't even realize, like, okay, what is hand slaughtered, what is grass-fed,
Sure.
versus what do you get in the grocery store. So
Yeah.
like, from you guys' perspective, I'm sure you guys are probably going through this stage right now where like you also have to convince people that this is worth buying into, right? So how are you guys approaching that? And then I guess let's start with actually, what is the difference between like what you get in the grocery store that you're not thinking about, and then versus like the actual process here? I know you guys kind of touched on it here and there, but like for the people that may not be thinking about this at all, like how should they be thinking about it?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny because if you go into, I'll just give you a simple example. You go to the grocery store and you see eggs. Everyone gets eggs, right? What do you see on what eggs are the ones that everyone goes for? The brown ones and the one that's grass fed, right? Or it's been on it says like veggie fed or something like that.
Organic.
Did you know that chickens are not vegetarians?
No,
Chickens eat bugs. They eat protein. A lot of what they're doing when they're going out and scratching around, they're looking for worms. They're looking for like bugs to eat. And in fact, like if you want a really good like chicken egg, it needs to have a lot of that protein in it. They're like little dinosaurs, right? I mean, you know, these people, they've marketed it like there's such a gap between the customer and what the farmer is actually doing that they like. If you say something like, "Oh, it's grass-fed chicken," people just gobble. Oh, that makes sense.
Right.
You know, chickens don't eat grass. Yeah, they eat seeds and stuff like that. Yeah, like that's good. That's supplemental, but they need protein. Like, you know, that's a huge part of their diet is just going around scratching and eating that stuff. So it's crazy that like people just don't realize these sort of things, right? Even for example, grass-fed or grass-finished. These are like some terms that like people don't actually completely understand. So, for example, sheep and cattle, you can have a grass-fed and a grass-fed animal, like 100% has been on grass its whole life. That's not a problem. What usually people do at the end is they'll finish them off on grain, so that they can start putting on the extra weight, because then when they sell it or when they take it to slaughter, the average weight is up. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to give your animals like grain and stuff like that, because it'll add on more fat to the animal, and like that's gonna make it taste a little bit better. But you know, at the same time, it shouldn't be just 100% grain fed or whatever, because if it's grain fed, it's probably on a lot, right?
Is grain the feed, or is that a separate thing too?
Grain is the feed. It's usually it could be like cracked corn. It could be and I mean, corn isn't even a natural diet for these guys. But you also have to think about like the ruminant animal as it's going across the grass. It could find maize or whatever it is that like different plants it'll eat. But typically, cattle and a lot of these ruminant animals like sheep will eat grass. Something like a goat, they're not so good on grass. A lot of people don't know that. Goats are more browsers. They eat weeds. They'll eat your tree before they eat your grass.
Oh, really?
Chew down the bark, yeah.
So yeah, they'll chew up the bark. We had a tree
everything
in the middle of our pasture, and I totally didn't even think about it at first. But then the goats started eating the tree, and I was like, oh no, I don't want them to eat the tree, because if I have that tree there, it provides shade, and having a tree also retains water in the ground, which is good for soil, which helps more grass grow. So we had to fence off the tree so that they don't eat it, because that's what they eat. They'll eat that stuff. No, people don't realize that, like and that's why the price of goat is actually more expensive, is because you can't just put a goat out onto pasture and expect that it's gonna survive, because it needs a certain type of weed or diet to survive, and so that's why you have to use grain. And now, because of COVID, right, that affects also the prices of grain, because now your workers aren't coming, and a lot of these slaughterhouses, because they're so it's a whole backup. Like the animals aren't, because the workers are getting sick of because of COVID, they're not showing up to the slaughterhouse, meaning animals are getting slaughtered, which means that the farmer has to hold on to the animal for longer, which means that he's got to feed it more, which means that the price of the animal's gone up because he's putting more money into it. Right. So for him, it makes more sense to just kill the animal. That's why like during COVID, you saw like these guys were just killing animals and dumping them off to the side. Because they couldn't keep them. They couldn't afford to keep them.
There were so many herd dispersals for farmers just over the last 2 years because of COVID, and just the amount of support they get, which is literally none.
Yeah.
Right? So they literally were losing their lifetime like investments basically, where their whole herds they would have to sell them because they couldn't take care of it at that point too.
That also shows you how fragile the meat market is, that if just one chain of it breaks, these guys have to like just kill animals and not even sell the meat or anything like that.
Right.
And it's not like there's consumers who wanted it, because a lot of us wanted the meat. We just couldn't find it in the grocery stores. You know, I would go to look for it and I couldn't find it. Why? Because, well, guess what? Your butcher is not there to slaughter it, and so because he can't slaughter it, the farmer can't afford to keep that animal any longer. He's got to get rid of it, right? So you know, it's a crazy industry, but this is why it's so important to support your local farmer, because for him, you know, if he's doing a proper pasture management program, then he doesn't have to worry about, okay, if the butcher isn't there tomorrow, no problem. I'll just move him to the next pasture. They're gonna start eating grass. They're good, right? Okay. And you're getting an animal that's healthy, right? It's been raised on grass, no hormones, right? And a lot of times because they're moving these animals every single day, you'll see that they don't need to give them as much antibiotics or as much like you know, any sort of medicine or anything like that, because a lot of those parasites exist in the feces, and so if they're pooping in one area but then they're moved to the next area, there's no chance of them picking up that parasite again. So a lot of times you'll see within these like feedlots, they just automatically assume that this animal is going to get sick, so we're just going to give it medicine. Doesn't even need the medicine, we're just going to give it to it. So it's like you're already putting all this medicine, hormones, all these random sort of things in there, because it's such a unhealthy environment that they just need to make sure that these animals stay alive. Right. You know? So I know it's kind of a long-winded answer. You were asking about some of the things that people see in the grocery store, but these are the things that, you know, if you see, for example, grass-fed, you know that the animal's been out on pasture. That's a great thing. If you see grass-finished, that means that it was eating grains and then they put it on pasture for a little bit, and then they put it in the slaughterhouse. And I forgot exactly what the time period is, but I think it's like a little over a month or 45 days or something like that. But the interesting thing is that just makes it more marketable. Grass finished. That's it. Yeah, like, you know, it was on the lot for its whole life, and then you put it on a you know, piece of grass for a little bit. You know, and then you went to slaughter it just so that people could, you know, make it marketable.
Yeah. It's interesting that they have like these labels that serve as like shortcuts, or like you can say brands in people's minds, like, you know, grass-fed, whatever, grass-finished, and like people don't even think about it after that, right? It's just literally like, okay, it's grass-finished, okay, must be good, you know what I mean? So I think one of the things that you guys probably have to do a lot of is like educate people. So how are you guys approaching this? Like, how do you convince people that this is actually...
So this is where like it's actually really funny, because sometimes we are almost getting convinced by people and getting advice. I think people don't really understand this whole process that Ali just gave on the background. When they come the day of, they think that's like all the knowledge they need to know, right? The age of the animal, how the animal looks, and the weight of it. They have those things down in their head. Now they need to advise us on how to run the processes. But if you look at it, let me break it down in reality of what goes on in each of these places that do, you know, give these animals for Qurbani and Udhiya to the Muslims. The goat market is growing within the states, okay? And you can cater that towards the Muslims, right? A lot of the Muslims are eating goat. Farmers realize, okay, there's a market for meat from goats because of the Muslims, because there were so many dealings like this that took place. So with the goats especially, what people don't realize is that these farmers, when they're selling them to the Muslims right now towards the Eid, first of all, the prices manipulate right towards Eid because they've kind of caught on over time. And instead of us having partnerships with them, we screwed them basically. So they're like, all right, you know, we'll even the playing field. But to get those numbers, right, around Eid, a lot of the times the farmers, they won't have like 50 to 100 goats only in their herd, right? What they'll do is they'll source out from different areas, right? And when you do that, and when you have different goats coming from different herds to one area, just because one area knows a lot of Muslims are going to come there and slaughter, every herd that comes in brings along its diseases with it to that herd, and they all get mixed, and they're all held in a short-term facility in short enclosures towards each other, all over, feces all over, you know, everything just in a consolidated area, and it gets dirty, and that's how diseases get passed. People don't realize that. People don't understand that. Where we come in, me and Ali, first of all, we work with one source, alhamdulillah. And if there are points where, our numbers are not being able to be met for the sales that are going in the future, what we do is, if we are to look at a different herd or a different source, we do not mix those animals in. There's at least a 2-week isolation period, all right? Because if we were to do that, the diseases would just go on with that, right? So these are like the small, intricate processes people don't understand. People don't understand you can't just have them all in one area together, bunched up, and then sell for qurbani. No, like you said, going back to the point, perfect your worship, right? These animals are not just a product that you're just selling and getting out, at a mass scale. No, this is you're at the end of the day, you're doing this for udhiya, right? This animal should be treated properly. So alhamdulillah, we have systems put in place that I think differentiate us from everyone else right now, where our animals are able to freely roam the land that they have, go wherever they want. They're not organized into small spaces. They're not getting mixed in from different herds, right? And alhamdulillah, I don't think there's anyone else, and I don't want to feel too cocky or anything saying this, but we got a vet on deck that once a week we consult with. So we know at this point what the best way is. I think now it's the Muslim population that's out there to kind of change that thinking process and think of this more of as a worship than a business transaction.
Yeah, so it sounds like you guys have a lot of things that are differentiated from the competition. My question is, in terms of customer acquisition, right? Like, how do you actually get people to sign up with you guys over the person that's, I'm sure there's probably another uncle that's haggling, getting half the price. Right. You know what I mean? How do you get those customers?
Dude, so alhamdulillah, I think a lot of the word has already gone around for me and Ali just being youth workers within the communities. There's a reliability that we've formed over the years, but alhamdulillah, the biggest points are the conditions of the animals, right? We do not put out any animals on the lot for sale that have any defects, do not meet the criteria for udhiya for all the madhabs. And the animals that we're putting out, they are for me at that point. So we kind of come in right off the bat. Those 3 most important things for an animal for udhiya, we take care of, right? The other points that we can go on for hours is the actual maintenance of the animals too. Ali, alhamdulillah, is a genius when it comes to these things. SubhanAllah, anything he puts his mind to, he learns very quick, and he's motivated about this. And you can say, wallahi, I can say with certainty, Ali is doing this more from a service or point than he is from a business standpoint. I constantly get reminders from him of how much reward it is that we get from doing it properly. So subhanAllah, money is not what he thinks at. So he's actually thinking about the worship of it. But with his standpoints, I'll let him elaborate the process that he's put into place. I think he introduced a bunch of electronic identification systems, new technological ways that he's come up with, alhamdulillah, to do this different ways.
Just to kind of reiterate what Ahmed is saying is that when we started this, we were taking people who've never done it before to kind of revive that sunnah. If you look at it in America, this is a sunnah that's dying. The only people that do it are usually the foreigners, right? And me and Ahmad, I was born here. Ahmad was born overseas, but he was raised here, so he kind of knows.
Pakistan.
Yeah. So it's and I've mentioned before, it's not a for most Muslim Americans, we just think that the meat comes from the store, right? Yeah. When I was growing up in Seattle, we didn't have any halal stores or anything like that. So my dad we used to go buy a cow, we would slaughter it, and we would distribute among our families. We would get goat, we would slaughter it, we'd raise them for some time, and then we'd slaughter it. So slowly that kind of came in my head, and later on I realized that not everyone does that. So for us, we wanted to revive the sunnah of being able to go and slaughter the animal, giving people the encouragement that, look, okay, yeah, it's a scary process. You're taking a life. We'll help you do that. We'll help you, with our knowledge on how to handle the animals and do it in a safe, proper way that you can do it. So last year was our first. It was like a pilot. We only did 40 animals, but we helped out, almost like 8 new people do their Udhiya for the first time. The year before that, I went to Dar Rahma, and I helped out Sheikh Abdul Karim in his community, and we slaughtered, I think, 22 animals together. So like, we really want to revive this sunnah. That to me is like the main thing, and I always remind Ahmed this, that even if we slaughter one animal, we've done what we're supposed to do, because this is us reviving that sunnah. And Ahmed was mentioning earlier that a lot of people just want to do it back home. Yeah, it's cool, you could do it back home, but at the same time, there are hungry people here, and part of that Udhiya process is that you give a portion of it to the needy, right? So a lot of times these guys will go to the farm, they'll slaughter the animal, and they'll eat the animal for themselves. They don't actually give any of it away. So like, we're working with Muslim Family Services. We've got a freezer on the site. You slaughter your animal, you take a portion of it, whatever you want to give, we throw it in the freezer, and then they're gonna come pick it up and deliver it to the poor. So right there, you're already fulfilling a big aspect of your deen, And so when it comes to what distinguishes us, it's this whole spiritual aspect of it, We're helping people revive the sunnah. We're helping people get to a point where they feel comfortable that they can do this on their own. And on top of that, they don't need to know how to skin and gut and do all that other stuff. We have people that will take care of that for you.
Professionals on deck.
Yeah, you can just take your meat, and we'll quarter it up for you, and you're good to go, right? And you've already donated whatever you need to donate, and you're good. So that's one aspect.
Wow. So like you'll handle
the donation,
the distribution stuff.
Yeah, we'll handle distribution for you.
Yep.
Yeah, you're good.
Honestly, that's like a big headache. Because you bring it home, you're like, okay, now I got to figure out like where can I drop this off?
Yeah, I mean, I got kind of schooled by Sheikh Abdul Karim for this last year or 2 years ago, but I was like, hey, do you know any poor people that I could donate some meat to? And he's like, a Muslim should know poor people, and that actually really stuck with me because. Unfortunately, we live in, Troy, we live in Canton, Bloomfield, wherever we live. Sometimes we don't realize that there are actually a lot of needy people around us. Right. I think we've grown up in a society where we're constantly just serving ourselves, and like, we go to the masjid, we pray our 5 daily prayers, we'll throw our money into some Islamic organization that'll donate the money somewhere else.
Right.
But there are poor people here. Like, if you look at the Sahaba, there were such people that wherever they would go, they would influence the people around them. They would help the people around them, so much so that they would become Muslim. Look at one Sahaba went to China, and now we have millions of Muslims, right? And why? It's because of how he was dealing with them, right? That's what people see the Muslim, and they're like, what's different about this person, right? What is it that's so what's so different about this person that they're willing to give so much to the poor and the needy and help out people and whatever, right? That's how people become Muslim, right? With those interactions. So, if you just think about like, how we deal with people, it's just like, we're a lot of times we're just so focused on ourselves, what our problems are. If you were to really think about it, once we start serving the community, and we're very wealthy, we're doctors, engineers, lawyers, we're very wealthy, but we don't have any connections within, like, outside of that, there's so many needy people that could use our services, right? And so just make friends, go talk to people, I realized this once I graduated, but once you graduate, you really kind of like, you stop interacting with people from the outside, right? You interact. Yeah, you just interact with your circles, and so khidmah is a big aspect of our religion, and we're really neglecting that. So, just to kind of go back to what we were talking about, but that service that we're providing, it's a big service, right? It's not something small. So, you should definitely know poor people, and that's something that we should all be comfortable with going and meeting people, and maybe that means that you go to places where there are poor people. Maybe you go serve at a soup kitchen or something, or you go somewhere to get to know people, Regardless though, so we offer that service. You can basically, you drop your meat off, and we'll deliver it to the poor people, even though technically you should do it yourself. But yeah, we help you out in that aspect. And then on top of that, Ahmed was mentioning that a big problem with this whole thing is that people go to the farm and they're there for hours.
Right.
Yeah. And I didn't realize this because my dad had taught us how to do it. So as soon as I'd go to the farm and I knew what animal I wanted, I would tell the farmer, hey, can I just grab it? I'll take care of myself. I don't need anybody to help me. So then I'd take it, slaughter it, in and out. Boom, I'm out for 1 hour, And then, people are telling me, oh, I was there for 8 hours. Like, why were you there for 8 hours?
There for way too long.
Yeah, it's because they have to wait for the farmer to grab the animal, hold it down, and then you slaughter it, right? So, so then, I was like, Ahmed, we should have time slots. Right. Because if we have time slots, then people will they'll be in and out within an hour. It'll be super, super quick and efficient. So that was one thing. The other thing was that, okay, now how do you find the animal, right? You got these huge lots. How do you find the animal? So that's another thing. A lot of times what people will do is that the day of Eid is the day you buy your animal. And so if first of all, it's a gamble if there's any animals left. Yeah. Second of all, you have to wait in line. Now, if you pre-buy your animal, we've already tagged it for you. You show up to the farm. We've RFID tagged all of those animals, and we basically have antennas. And I did the whole programming myself, so that when it runs in front of the antenna, I actually got this idea from my cousin because he was telling me some stuff about RFID stuff and towels and hotel stuff, whatever. But regardless, the animal shows up in front of the antenna. We know exactly which lot it's in. So, you show up on the farm, and then the ID shows up, and then we've got them marked. We spray paint them, and then we just tell our handlers, hey, grab this number, and they'll grab it from the spray paint marking. It'll be in this section, and so it's easy for them, right? Like there's no issue. It's really efficient. You're in and out, and I think that in itself is like a big service. Yeah, it's a big service.
Just right now, the whole overall experience of Qurbani Udhiya, it's a hassle. That's what everyone, when you think of Qurbani Udhiya in the States, within Michigan especially, you think of a hassle.
I think of all day gone.
All day gone. There's going to be a lot of stress involved. Yeah. So that's where me and Ali, sat down and thought of a lot of things.
If I can add one more point. So the other thing is that, like, I don't know how many animals you've handled, but the average consumer doesn't know anything about a goat or a sheep.
Right.
It's going back to funny stories. We've seen people come and they're feeling up their animal and they're massaging it, and doing all these great things, and you can only tell so much from that. Really, when you look at the animal, you should be able to tell from the structure. Okay, this is a good animal. It's like the
gloss of the fur.
It looks good. The gloss is good. You can maybe check the teeth for the age, whatever. There's only so much you can check. But if you're massaging the animal, I don't know what you're looking for. So. But the average consumer has no idea what they're looking for. That's where me and Ahmed come in, and I was telling Ahmed, I was like, I don't think a lot of people even care to look at the animal. Although you should. Right. It's part of the sunnah to look at the animal and see it. But what we do is once you've picked your animal, we'll take a picture of it and we'll send it to you. That, okay, say you book it online, you choose your animal, we, maybe 60, 70 pound, whatever. We'll take a picture of it, we'll tag it, and we'll send you a picture so you get to see it. So we still kind of fulfill the sunnah in that regard. But the reality is that most people just don't know. They don't know what they're looking for. You're an engineer, you've been in school your whole life. You never even probably seen a sheep other than, Eid day. So we take out the hassle for you because all of our animals are good quality, high quality, and we're not going to sell you something that's not, when we buy them in lots, right? And so we got one sheep that basically had a broken horn, right? And now I can't sell that to anybody, right? Because that's not acceptable for Udhiya. But it gives me another opportunity because now I can donate that meat. So I'll find somebody and I'll say, hey, does anybody looking for some animals? Like last year we had one ram that we couldn't sell for Udhiya. We donated it to a masjid, right? And so it kind of opens up opportunities for us because this is also a part of our religion is that, if you're affected with black magic, you're affected with evil eye, whatever, sacrificing an animal can help you, right? And you feed people from that meat, it'll help you. So I'm not saying I can cure magic, but I can cure magic, man, So, but these are ways, things that people can do, if you want to get extra hasanat for feeding, the poor people, you could just I've had people hit me up and be like, hey, can you slaughter an animal and donate it to somebody? Yeah, I got you, no problem. you know. And so I have a list of people that I can hit up. You know, I know people that are in need. And so it takes the hassle away from you, but it also gives us the benefit and opportunity to deliver meat directly to people who need it here in America. You know, because sometimes people just get so focused on their country where they're from, they forget there are actually Muslims here who could use the meat, right? So, and you're basically neglecting your neighbor for someone overseas. You know, we should be focused on the people next door, right?
Yeah. So what I'm getting from like this whole conversation so far is that for people like me on the other side who are just making the purchase, we want the easiest thing possible. What you guys really offer for me is, number one, peace of mind that things are being done properly.
Yep.
And then number two, I'm not going to have any headache.
Yeah.
It's going to be done properly, the right way, and then you don't have to worry about it.
The whole structure of it, we're going to come in and we've completely changed it, right? So before, when you go to a farmer, there's a bunch of animals, right? You don't know which type of breed the animal is, if it's for meat, if it's for this, if it's this. You don't know which one is healthy, but they're all mixed in. With us, you come, all of them fulfill the Udhiya requirements, meet the criteria, are healthy animals bred for meat, okay? That's number one. Get rid of that stress right there. Now you don't have to choose. The other thing is, we've actually moved everything over, a lot of it over to online. So you don't have to come out on the location, right, and pick your animal, go through all these animals and pick. And one of the reasons that is, man, the animals get stressed out and it's just a headache, and people just want to grab on every little thing. They don't know how to grab the animals. Right. Some people would literally, I kid you not, grab the leg to try to drag it. And it's a powerful animal. You can imagine how much horsepower it probably has in its leg, and it's kicking. It can break its leg or hurt itself when it's kicking like that, and you're just pulling on one leg. So to get rid of that, we categorized the animals, right? They're all similar animals for meat, meet the Udhiya requirements by weights, okay? All of the weights have their prices assigned. If you are to go onto the website, buy an animal, within 1 to 2 business days, you get an individual picture of your unique, animal. And if you're not happy with it, we will exchange it. If you are happy with it, alhamdulillah, goes forward, right? Yeah. So that way you're getting that whole headache out of going there, wasting an hour to pick, and you're getting the animal picture too that you need at that point. So
can we go through the process, like, if for the people that are interested in doing their Udhiya, right? Like, you go on the website. What's the website called?
Yeah, so the website is www.purenaturalhalal.com.
You can just say pure
natural.
Yeah.
It's got just for any of the
who types in www anymore,
right?
Thought you was gonna say like WWF or something.
No, it's very simple, honestly. You go to the website, and when you go to the website, there's an area that we have called livestock. Click on the livestock, and it shows you what we have. This year, inshallah, we're only doing goats and lambs, and you're able to pick one of the animal type that you want. And after that, it opens up the link that you click. Let's say it's goat, and then it'll show the weight, right? And then it'll ask you a couple of questions. And the questions include, will you be slaughtering, or will we be slaughtering on your behalf? Do you want to donate this meat? And there's a time slot for you to pick, for you to come if you are coming that day. So essentially, you're literally getting rid of like the whole stress of having to pick a great animal, because they're all good animals, right? They're all great animals. They're already there. And you're getting rid of the whole day wasted, because now you're picking a time slot. You come during that time slot. It's going to be so efficient that our professionals, they skin an animal in 5 to 10 minutes max. So the only hard part, or the part that's going to take 20 minutes, is just grabbing the animal, bringing it to the area where it needs to be slaughtered. After that, you're out. You're out. And I think people don't realize that how fast it's going to be with the way that we've set it up. And alhamdulillah, they will see after the first year. But I think that's the selling point, that really differentiates us from everyone, that you're doing an act of worship in the proper way in such a short time too. So now you can fulfill the other act of worship too, which is on Eid. Family and friends, spend your time. Don't just waste it away, stressing over this stuff the whole day.
We also have we're gonna have like a bouncy house and a tent. And things.
Right.
So you can bring your family.
Kids, we want this to be a spiritual experience, right?
You bring your family, let them enjoy, sit comfortably, have some food, relax.
I was gonna make a joke, but it's like, we're in a bouncy house. It's gonna be a spiritual experience. Like, what kind of spiritual experience did you have in a bouncy house? But one of the things, so I guess if I select that we want you to handle everything? Or are you guys just going to give me the meat, or I got to go pick it up at a certain time window? How does that work?
So we have options on the website right now. If you want it delivered, right, you just hit the delivery option.
Too. Oh
Yeah,
my
you hit the delivery
Just
option.
thought of everything.
It is an extra charge at that point.
Of course, yeah.
Can't break an arm and a leg to get you your meat. But we have that there for you. And honestly, for people that want to learn to do it the proper way, like, I don't want them holding back. Like, let us know you want to do it. We have no issue teaching you how to do it the proper way. I mean, there's probably like 30, 40 guys out there that from our youth groups that, subhanAllah, now can literally put an animal between their legs and slaughter it with one strike, and the animal does not feel pain. So we have no issue teaching you to do it how the proper way if you want to do it, right? I actually would encourage you to do it. But, it's all set up there for you in an efficient manner. If you want to do it, we will teach you how to do it quick, where it's painless for the animal. If you don't want to do it, a professional will take care of it. Either way, you're in and out within 30 to 45 minutes if you have one animal.
This is getting me really excited, honestly.
Yep.
Yeah, man. We're trying to make this as easy as possible. Obviously, we don't want to encourage people to just do a delivery, so it's not like, because again, you're missing out on the whole spiritual aspect of it. But we offer that service because there are some people who just
they're working, can't make
it, whatever. So it should be convenient. So.
Yeah, anything else you guys want to get into?
Not really, man, other than Ali can have something, but for me, my final words are just keep us in your du'as, man. One of the biggest reasons I partnered up with Ali to do this was I hated seeing over the years, and I'm talking, I probably saw thousands of animals just not being kept the right way and maintained the right way. And even when it came to day of slaughtering, to go through those conditions, first of all, for like 3-4 weeks that these farmers grabbed them for the Muslims, to put them in those small areas, consolidate them, and then on the day of Qurbani to put them even through more pain. That was one thing that really rubbed me the wrong way. And, we want to make it a point that, this needs to be cleared out, and we need to do it this proper way. So when you do something the proper way, there's more khushu in it too, right? When you perfect your prayer, when you start to not think about all these worldly things during your prayer, it feels better, right? So you'll feel much better if you're doing it the proper way. I mean, there's many times where, like, in my head, I've seen someone do something, and Ali knows I don't bite my tongue. I just go, man, that Qurbani did not count. Like, straight up to the guy. Like, there were times where I kid you not, going back to a funny story, someone one year literally wanted to slaughter Ahmed, and when he went to slaughter it, he slaughtered it like this. His head was looking the opposite way, and his arm was extending out with the knife. So let's do it the proper way. Let's perfect this act of worship, and keep us all in your du'as, and let's work together with the farmers too.
One thing, sorry to just cut you off here. Can we get into the back end a little bit? Just like a couple things I wanted to ask is, how many people do you guys have that are kind of running this operation? I know there's you two, right, that are kind of like the on top, and then you guys probably have butchers. You guys have, like, who's managing once the orders come in, organizing all that? And
so it's
actually, there's me and Ahmed are kind of like obviously the heads of it, but first we have like a ton of people who just kind of came together. We probably should have mentioned this earlier, but there are mashallah, like a lot of our youth group, a lot of our friends came through and kind of helped us. One of the cool things about our farm is that each one of those posts is actually has a family name written on it.
Yeah, for everyone.
And so
each one of those posts.
Each post that basically holds the animals has a family name written on it, right? Because again, this is a spiritual aspect for us, right? That inshallah, for every hair, you get rewarded for, right? You get your sins forgiven. So every family, inshallah, we're hoping that inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also forgive them, and on the day of judgment, Allah will put this on their scale as well, that we slaughtered all these animals and we did it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and inshallah Allah will also add that to their scale. So we have a lot of families, our teachers are written on there, so again, it's a very spiritual aspect. So all of our helpers, right, everyone that helped us, they all have their own posts. A lot of my youth group, a lot of those guys like Shahir and Munir, those two guys were there in the beginning helping me dig posts. Yeah, Sibi. A lot of these guys were coming through. They helped us, dig those posts and put them in, and especially even coming together and getting the fencing. There's a whole science behind it. It's not just you don't just put posts on the ground. It has to be sturdy, So we have all those volunteers, mashallah, that helped us. And then on top of that, we have our butchers. We have one person who's kind of in charge of all of the butchers that we were working with, and he's bringing his whole squad to help us. Uncle Jabril, he's like an OG in the Detroit community for teaching all these guys on how to butcher. And mashallah, man, that guy's amazing. Like I have a lot of love and respect for him. He has it, and that was one thing that when we were going into this, that I wanted to find a butcher who kind of understood the value of life, and because a lot of times when you're doing this, especially for the butcher, it's just another life,
right?
You're just slaughtering, you're just kind of going through. So when I talked to Uncle Jabril and we had like a long, lengthy conversation, Uncle Jabril really he really like put it in perspective that these are like real living beings,
Right.
So that was it was a really beautiful thing that that conversation with him. So we have our butchers, and then on the day of, we have our handlers. They're the ones who go and grab the animals. And then Ahmed and I personally are there to help you actually slaughter the animal. So we have a technique that we use to help people slaughter, because we've seen people lose fingers and stuff.
Oh, really?
So one is we have chainmail gloves. That's like one added protection.
Right.
The other thing is that when you're holding the animal, a lot of times what happens is people kind of forget where everyone's hands are, right? So I make sure that the person who's slaughtering, his hand is on top of my hand. Because then that way he knows, okay, my hand is here, I don't want to cut that, so I'm going to go this way, right? So automatically I'm safe and he's safe, right? So there's a whole technique to it. We someone else is holding on the animal, someone else is kind of helping.
Don't give away all of our secrets, man. We're trying to stay differentiated.
But yeah, bro, if I could save some fingers, I think we're good, right? So but regardless, we have a whole process in place. You come up, and
from top to down. Sorry to cut you off, Ali. From top to down, if you're asking like from the operation standpoint, so from top to down, if you were to look at it with our business model, right? I would say in terms of the knowledge base and internal structure, Ali kind of takes that over. Then I come in on the marketing sales side and just making contacts and stuff like that we take over. We work with one source, alhamdulillah, very reliable, and that's where we source our animals from. And then we have a veterinarian that we consult with. We have handlers on the day of, and then we have skilled professionals who skin and butch, just to kind of give you a summary.
And
so
one thing I totally forgot to mention, but there were obviously when you do the work of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes things easy, right?
Yeah.
But subhanAllah, there were so many things that happened in a way that just put all this together very easily for us, man. Imagine, first of all, trying to find a place to slaughter, right? So we're looking for land. We were looking for different places, whatever.
Zone.
We found a spot that's connected to the masjid. Like out of all the places, zoning, you have to figure out the zoning stuff, right? So out of all the places, we found a place. Not only is it zoned for this this type of work, but it's also literally the land connects with the masjid. So that's that in itself was huge, right? Then on top of that, we're having all these kids come in and do this work. Some of the kids were bringing their non-Muslim friends. One of them took his shahada on the farm.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then there was while we were working there, one day I go to the farm and there's all these vegetables that just randomly sprouted out of nowhere.
Really?
Yeah, and so I called the owner, and he was like, I was like, yo, have you ever seen any what's it called, anything like this before? And so he's like, no, we've never planted anything on this property. Yeah. So I was like, wow, subhanAllah, man, that in itself is a sign itself that the land is fertile. Where did all these vegetables come from? I'm talking squash, pumpkin, huge huge pieces of. So I took a bunch of them, I donated them to people and just gave them to people and stuff. So there was just so many things, even just how Ahmed finding these contacts for farming and stuff. Where do you begin to look, right? Where do you find a farmer who could supply 500 animals? It's not easy to find, but subhanAllah, just things were just coming so easily. Things that should have taken us I was telling him, I was like, listen, we literally have to just drive around and we have to start finding farmers to see if we can get them. But subhanAllah, things just fell into our laps, right? Alhamdulillah, it just got really Allah made everything super easy, just kind of fell into our plate. honestly, like something like this, it should have taken us years to put together. But alhamdulillah, like I said, Allah just, and these are just some stories I'm mentioning.
Yeah,
I'm not even.
there's a bunch.
There's a
Yeah,
bunch of them like
it
this.
just goes back to the point of like, Ali really, puts this down, hammers this down that it's an act of worship, right? It's a service. So subhanAllah, if you're doing something for the sake of Allah, He's gonna make it happen for you no matter what you have in your head. And we constantly actually remind each other of this. Even yesterday, we had a conversation about this where it was like, just if there's any stress about it, let it go. Whatever comes, it was meant to be, and whatever doesn't come, it wasn't meant to be, and you'll learn from it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to learn from it. So I think that's the biggest thing right here, right? As we are doing this deed, right, this perfecting of the sunnah within the states in Michigan, making something that's a normal thing for the normal everyday Muslim here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making it easier for us day by day. And wallahi, like if we were to actually write down the numbers of things, or the dates that things happened, or even the dreams that Ali and me had, or the things that happened on the property before everything, came together, you would be amazed. You'd be amazed. Maybe Netflix needs to pick us up for a documentary or
I know,
something.
right?
Yeah.
Could be the next meteor.
Yeah.
Last thing I did want to ask is, do you guys, I know you guys have operational costs, but are you guys spending any money on marketing? It sounds like everything is word of mouth right now.
In terms of marketing, man, like anytime I tell people that like, I need flyers made, there's one Aunt Auntie, I usually go to her. She works for Dazzle Printing. She like I told her, I said, hey, like I'm making this, because I usually go to her to get flyers for the masjid anyways. I told her this is from my business, like this is separate from the masjid completely. Like I'm willing to pay for it. She's like, don't worry about it, I'll print for free. So like marketing costs, like really it's been almost
we don't really have any.
Really haven't had any. I mean,
we don't.
The only thing you guys have done outside of word of mouth, it sounds like, is flyers.
Flyers, and then we have social media.
Too, right?
Yeah, we have a newsletter. People signed up.
We put it up in we have a newsletter ourselves. We also, I sent it to some of the masjids, and they put it in their own e-blast. I don't think they typically do that for regular businesses, but because I guess it's more of a service for Muslims, that they've kind of taken that on.
Yeah. So how can people? So I know we talked about the website. Is there any other place where you would like to direct people, like the newsletter or anything like that?
Of course, yeah. The newsletter is one. You can go on the website and sign up on it. It is www.purenaturalhalal.com. But the other thing is, me and Ali, in part of thinking about how we can reach out to the communities and to the normal everyday Muslim in perfecting the sunnah is, we have an Instagram page at Pure Natural Halal, and we are actually going to be posting videos going into the future, like educational videos on livestock and just everything forward within the process, so people are more informed, right? And the more people get informed, the more they'll want to fulfill that sunnah properly. And honestly, we have never been scared about marketing or spending money on marketing or doing all of this, because at the end of the day, just the way everything's fallen into place, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taking care of us, I think when people realize and see, look, these animals are never in pain, they're in good conditions, they're proper animals, then they're being slaughtered the proper way, it takes only 45 minutes. There's parts set up to donate it to different areas of the community. They can do delivery. All these things are easy. It's a hassle-free experience. It'll sell for itself.
Absolutely.
But for now, word of mouth has been great, and all of a lot of our teachers, in the communities, they've done a lot for us too. Like Sheikh Masmari, Mufti Abdul Rahman, Mufti Abdul Wahab, Sheikh Abdul Aziz, Maulana Abdullah, Mufti Rabbani, Sheikh Ahmed, and man, these guys really have our backs too. Where
Mufti Wahaj,
they trust us. Yeah, Imam Wahaj.
Yeah, we basically we consulted like many different ulama before we started, just so that we could understand the actual proper fiqh of even understanding how to do this. So we consulted a sheikh from the Maliki fiqh, a sheikh from the Shafi fiqh, a sheikh from the Hanafi fiqh, and just kind of went through okay, what are the different what sort of animals acceptable. So if someone comes to me and says, hey, I'm Maliki, what do I what animal can I slaughter? Then I can tell them, okay, this is how this animal should be, or this is how the animal should be, or let me call someone and ask them, is this animal acceptable or not? So it was a big learning process for ourselves, just to understand that. But yeah, man, it's been a big learning experience, this whole thing, and really learned a lot. And I still feel like we're just kind of scratching the surface. There's there's a lot of things that like I've been thinking about, and every day I tell Ahmed, like, we should write down all these ideas that we have, because one thing is like educating people and showing videos, but also providing services where people can come onto the farm and say I want to get to a point where we could have like a lecture about the benefits of doing the Udhiya and the rites of Hajj or whatever, and then people go and select their animal afterwards. You know what I'm saying? And turn it into like a really like a spiritual event where people could come and pick their animals and learn about their deen and whatnot. That's where I want to get to, is that eventually we can do things like that. But that's kind of down the road. We're working on it, inshallah. And we're looking for the Muslim community to support us, and so far they've come through. It's funny because you're talking about marketing, and I was like worried, like, look, are we gonna, should we be putting out Facebook ads? Should we put it out, like, these sort of things? And like, I just wanted to kind of test the water and see how it's going. It's like, dude, like, every day my phone is just blowing up. Hey, you got lambs. Hey, you got goats. You got this. You got this. But yeah, alhamdulillah, like, it's been good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been really good and kind to us, even though honestly it's not like we've done anything special, right? There are people who are probably like really like doing like really heavy work of deen. We're just offering one small service, and we're just trying to make it easy for Muslims, and alhamdulillah, Allah has been good to us.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you guys so much for coming on. It's been super exciting.
Jazakallah khair for hosting us.
Yeah, I'll put all the links in the description, and I think I'm gonna do it through you guys this year.
Inshallah, yeah, come through. And after Eid, inshallah, we're also gonna be offering meat throughout the year. So if anyone's interested, again, they can just go through the Pure Natural website, and we'll get you connected and get your food delivered to you.
Awesome.
Now, as always, I have my key takeaways from this episode, but before we get into that, I want to share a clip with you from our discussion with Zain Siddiqui on branding a coffee shop.
It's like just being invested in what people are talking to you about. It goes a long way, and people really like that, and that helps with reviews, because they think you're friendly, they think you're great to talk to. They feel comfortable in the space, regardless of whatever the individual's views might be, or whatever it could be.
If you enjoyed this discussion, I'm sure you'll also enjoy the discussion with Zain. Check it out wherever you're listening to this podcast. It is episode number 38. Now, here are my key takeaways. Number 1, the best way to differentiate yourself is to solve a problem that no one else is solving. And here's a spoiler here. If no one else is really solving it, chances are it's because it's very hard to solve it. And number 2, don't underestimate the role of experience. Ali and Muhammad have been doing this for years before they officially started a business. This allows them to really hit the ground running. And that is all for this episode. If you enjoyed this discussion, please consider leaving a review and sharing with a friend. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.